Welcome to Wealthy After 40. Ready to ditch debt, retire sooner, and live life on your own terms? Only 54% of Gen Xers feel prepared for retirement, and 22% believe they will live a comfortable lifestyle. So if you're feeling like your finances are a hot mess express, you are not alone. I'm Daleen Higgins, founder of Elevate Finances and money coach for Gen Xers. I reached my dream of retiring at 50 while helping our daughter through college, and now I want to help you do the same. It's time to stop avoiding your finances like the plague and start having confident conversations about money. Join me every week to talk about personal budgeting, debt payoff, saving for retirement, money mindset, and leaving a legacy for future generations. Okay, friends, let's talk money. Welcome back to another episode of Wealthy After 40. Today's episode is about budget behaviors. So I'm going to use that term behavior a little loosely in this episode, but really it can be a feeling, an emotion, an action on our part. And I think a lot of times, time is spent in telling us or teaching us, these are the things you need to do with budgeting, that I don't think individuals have explored the feelings, right? And we know that to go from a negative, or if we're functioning in a negative mindset or functioning from a negative position, we won't make progress, right? We know that. But how do you know what is the positive thing to replace it with? How do you know to, what are you seeking? You're feeling this way, but what should you be seeking? And so that's what I hope to accomplish in today's episode, is really helping you understand the feelings and emotions and the behaviors that you're having and going to have with budgeting. Having done a journey of it for over 15 years now, and reflecting back, I really, there's a lot of things that I'm like, I've heard and they do, and I know what it took for me to be successful. So hopefully in sharing that, you will be able to change your mindset, change your habits, and improve your relationship with money at the budget level, right? At the budget level. That is a word we hate, and I'm going to use that loosely, we and hate together. But it's, budgeting just brings in those feelings of, but it is a necessity to being successful with your money. So hopefully as I talk about it more from all different, approaches and thoughts, behaviors, strategies, all of that you'll be able to build your own positivity with budgeting. All right, so the very first behavior, and again, I said I'm going to use behavior loosely. It's a feeling, it's an emotion, and it's an action. But behavior one is avoiding. So there's a lot of people who are avoiding their finances for different reasons, right? So they just don't look at it. My daughter, when she had her first bout with croup, and my sister was tending her for me, and I went to take her to the doctor, she says she just holds her breath. So when I went to the doctor, I asked him, why does she keep holding her breath? He goes, because it hurts when she breathes. So if she doesn't breathe, it doesn't hurt. So this is what we're doing with avoiding, right? Because if we look at it, it hurts. We have these feelings of embarrassment, shame, and whatever it may be. And so we just keep avoiding because it hurts less. So what we need to do is we need to build a behavior or a habit of awareness. So you're going from avoiding to being aware. And how are you going to do this? Well, if you have not looked at your bank account in a while, several months or maybe even several years, that is the first step. I want you to look at your bank account or your credit card or whatever it may be that you avoid looking at because you just know it's going to hurt, right? So look at it, and you're going to ask these questions of yourself to start bringing awareness, to start understanding how you can move forward. open up the bank account and look at it and ask yourself, is the situation still the same? What caused you to avoid this in the first place? Does it still exist? Sometimes it may not. And, instantly you're like, oh, okay, it's not that way anymore, or it's not, bringing that feeling anymore. Another question to ask, what has not looking at it done for you or done for it, right? And now the two important questions, and these are the two you're going to ask yourself going forward. What feelings do you have when you're looking at it? What is your immediate thoughts and feelings as you open up your bank account? And what do you want to feel instead? Right? So finding that shift, learning that we want to replace it, but we have to know what we want to replace it with. So the action step with this behavior is to look at your bank account regularly. If you have been avoiding it for a while, this should be at a minimum of weekly, okay? The more often, the better, but at least start with weekly. And as you keep doing these actions, hopefully it will become easier. You will know what you want to replace it with. And as I continue today's episode with the next behaviors, you'll understand how to move forward. All right, so behavior number 2, budgets are restrictive. I know, I hear it all the time. It's said all the time. It's stated all the time. So what can you fill instead? Powerful. To me, my budget was positive and powerful. I realized what it did for me at the end of my journey. Now, if you're in the middle or at the beginning of your journey, you're not going to be able to feel that power in that same magnitude as I did, but you are going to feel power every single day. So that is the behavior replacement you're looking for, is instead of it being restrictive, you want it to be power. Restrictive can lead to, frustration, which I'm going to talk about next, but it can also lead to feelings of powerlessness. So I want you, as you approach your budget, to start recognizing those little moments of it being powerful for you, and how is it being delivered to you. So I've got 3 strategies to help you on your beginning journey with this, of moving from restrictive to powerful. And the first one is to remember that you are the creator of your budget. If you feel your budget is too restrictive, you need to recreate it. You created it in the first place, right? So remembering that you are the creator, and that is where your power is going to come from, and you're still feeling restricted, I want you to go back and I want you to recreate it. Sometimes we are so caught up, we're so myopic with what we're looking at that we need to bring in somebody else to help us out, right? To help us see it in a different view, see it in a different light. So, reach out, get somebody to help support you in this step. Number 2 strategy is to keep your budget positive, right? As you're approaching it, make sure that you can find the positiveness within every expense. We all have to pay for housing. We all have to pay for groceries, so for food, we all have to pay for fuel. There's just some of those things. And instead of thinking it as a have to, I got to do this and I don't get to spend the money the way I want. The feeling of abundance, right? I have money for these 3 things. And then from there, I get to provide for myself in the way I want. That is the power. That is the power that is beyond that. So keep it positive. Keep your thoughts positive. Keep your approach positive so that you can keep moving forward. And remember, at any time that you feel restricted, I want you to go back and recreate it. You might not have to strip it down if it's been several months, but just remember you are the creator. And if you're still feeling restrictive, then something needs to change. something needs to change in there. Something is still not quite right. The last strategy, this might be it for that, is to keep an element of fun. You cannot strip yourself down to absolutely nothing. You must provide something of fun in there to help you continue to go to work, to continue to stay on the track of, paying down debt if that's what you're doing. And that element of fun is my number one belief in budgeting, and it's one of the first things we address in my very first session with coaching. It's a full discussion around how to look for this element of fun and why it's so important and fitting it in there. It's such a great idea to remember and to implement into budgeting. All right, moving on to the next behavior. Behavior number 3 is frustration. I have heard so many people say it's just so frustrating. I just can't do it. I don't know what it is. And all of a sudden this expense shows up. So what you want to do is when you get that feeling of frustration, think, what is frustrating me? Is it this expense? And why is it this expense? Can I prevent future frustration by making sure I account for this expense? How does this fit in my budget life? And I'm not talking about the month, right? Because we are moving, so I've only talked about the negative behavior so far. We're moving from frustration to flexibility. And realizing that yes, it's a budget quote for the month, but life is not happening the same every month. That is such an important concept to understand and to learn also that life happens, right? As we set out heading into the new month with our budget, and we know the things that, are on our schedule, that are on our calendar, that we plan to do, but life happens. So instead of being caught up in the frustration, think to yourself, how can I make this work moving forward? So you have an expense show up. You need to account for it. You need to be flexible, right? And sometimes I know you feel like, oh, well, the budget's just blown. No, that is where you need to think about, how can I make this work moving forward? How can I still, because say it's like the 8th of the month, right? And you're like, how can I do this moving forward? Think about the expense. Think about all your other expenses. Is there something you can adjust, pause, or redirect? Right? That's how you can start becoming flexible as you have life events happen that require money. Most of our life does, right? We maybe didn't have foresight into what happened, or we forgot it, or the cost wasn't the same. But learning to be flexible and understanding that budgets are flexible, that is the very, very important shift that we need to have. So when the frustration happens, understanding what is causing that, can you fix that? And then secondly, how are you going to flow with life's events? How are you going to continue this budgeting habit, learning to flow with life's events? Okay? That's just something that life happens, and money really is a part of most of our life. And so the huge behavior of learning to be flexible and learning to incorporate that in your, in your budget, in your money, in your, thinking process, like, how am I going to have that serve me and help me? So I hope that gives you some understanding there. Behavior number 4, from complacency so complacency, these are the people who don't have any major stressor, right? They meet their bills, they live fine, paycheck to paycheck, even when a little bit of a surprise happens, right? But they're very complacent because they're like, well, I can keep that budget in my head. But there's dangers associated with being complacent. harder to achieve goals. You have no idea what the future entails. You're not planning for it or preparing for it, and less likely to, be 100% able to cover a large emergencies. So changing complacency to being intentional, getting focused, right, and being intentional is so important. And getting focused helps us build what we want. It helps us to build the life we want. And understanding this about budgeting, like it probably would be the biggest key you could take away from today's episode, is that budgeting is going to build the life you want. We can get intentional with our desires, our goals, and we can actually achieve them. And we just get really, really, really focused. Another thing I learned after reflecting back on my journey, and at the point I became very focused and intentional, and it takes a while, right? There's definitely the FOMO going on, but as I really got intentional and really got, in tune with my budget, there were fewer distractions. Those distractions no longer had the FOMO going on. I had less stress, and just being able to persevere and conquer my dreams, right? Other people had things going on. I was happy for them and grateful for them, but I was so focused and so intentional on what I was headed for and what I wanted. Those distractions bothered me less and less. And the last behavior I want to talk about is, or a negative thought, I guess, is that it's so time consuming. Yes, it is, especially in the beginning. But the longer you put it off, the longer it's going to take to be able to achieve your dreams, right? To be able to get there. We're all busy. We all have things we have to do. It just depends on how we can prioritize. So I'm going to give you a couple of suggestions to make it less time consuming in the beginning. First, a thing that I see really, really often is somebody creating a new budget every month. They sit down and they create a brand new budget every month. Learning to create a budget that can flow from month to month is key. And with that, you build a monthly budget, you use it, right? So we have to track it. I'll talk about that in a minute. But you track it and then you refine it. What did I forget, right? Remembering back to those frustrations. What am I expecting? What did I learn? And make a few changes. Continue building upon that. I can guarantee you in 6 to 12 months, that effort of creating that budget or having that budget is going to be less and less, okay? And then create a simple tracking system for yourself. If you don't love tracking every single number, then don't, right? You also have to create a very good cash flow system. Where are bills being paid out of? Is the money there? What do I need to do? What am I looking at for my spending? All of those little things. So really we're looking from going from time consuming to efficient. And yes, this will take some time. This is a learned process. This is maybe a longer, shift that we need to make, but understanding that we're looking for efficiency. And for us, that's going to look different than somebody else. In the very beginning, I used cash envelopes. It was definitely a little more time consuming than the system I use now, but I needed it and I loved it at that time, right? But I had my budget. I just had to go to the bank, get the cash, stuff my envelopes, and I learned to love that system. And that's the next important thing, right? Is really getting into this vibe that you enjoy what it is you're using. I then moved to YNAB, which supported my new goals and my new, what I wanted to get out of a budget system. And since I've probably used that longer than I used cash envelopes, but coming into a new time in my life, there's only 2 of us in the household that are spending, that are needing to be, saved and spent for, and all of the things. I'm looking for something even more simple. So I'm going to definitely shift. So understanding that your budget system, your tracking, your cash flow, it can change over time. So choose one, and it may resonate with you for a little while, or if it doesn't, from the beginning find something else. It's going to be a trial and error process. This is something I love to help people create. I take their strengths and what they love about what they're already doing, and let's just double down on that and create a system for you that is so simple to move forward and gives you in return what you want. And talking more about budgets, I am offering a quick budget audit call. This is a 20-minute free call that can transform your outlook on budgeting. During this call, we will work together to discover what might be missing from your budget routine. We'll review your income and expenses, discuss any frustrations you have about budgeting, and harness your strengths for budget success. Don't miss this opportunity to gain clarity and confidence in your budgeting journey. Schedule your free call today using the link in the show notes below, and let's get you started on your path to financial success today. Thanks for listening. Every week, my goal is to help you get one step closer to financial freedom and making confident decisions so your money starts working for you. Having a community of support is important to your financial success. I would love to have you join me in my free Facebook community, All Things Personal Finance. Inside this group, every live training, action challenge, and posts are filled with tips and strategies to help you progress to financial freedom. If you have questions from today's episode or want to learn more, follow me on Instagram at Elevate Finances. If you're looking for personalized support to get your finances on track, check out my website at elevatefinances.us to learn more about how I can support you with one-on-one coaching. Thanks and have a wonderful day.